Greetings, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and you are watching the Cardboard Da Vinci YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in. And in this video is a book review. The name of the book is The Life of Leonardo da Vinci. And it's kind of interesting because what this book actually is a translation of a 500-year-old book by an author named Giorgio Vasari. He was almost a contemporary of Da Vinci's. He was 9 years old when Leonardo da Vinci passed away. So there are some things you might find very interesting in this book review. It's a small book, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. Let's do the intro and then we'll launch into the book review. Okay, first let's talk a little bit about the author of the original Italian for this book. His name is Giorgio Vasari. He was a famous artist in his own right, but his biggest claim to fame is 3 books that he wrote in, it was 1550, and then he republished and updated again in 1568. So this was almost in the time of Leonardo da Vinci, and those books were called The Lives of the Most Excellent Italian Architects, Painters, and Sculptors, which is kind of interesting. And in that series of 3 volumes, he did like short biographies of 175 different famous artists and sculptors and painters, and one of which is he wrote about Leonardo da Vinci. And this book here, The Life of Leonardo da Vinci, just covers that one aspect from his 3-volume set, the story of Leonardo da Vinci. So first, let me talk a little bit about the physical aspects of the book, I guess you could say. It's a small book. It's only like 10 inches by 6 inches, but it's very actually beautifully crafted. You can tell that the book actually, a lot of love went into the book. The paper is lush and it has got a slight cream color to it. The font is beautiful. It's, so there was a lot of care taken, and they didn't just make a book. A lot of care went into this book, and I think there's 40 illustrations in it. So it's rather a beautiful book. And, the subject deserves that, I guess. But, and it's also a small book. It's 128 pages in length, of which there's actually only about 50 pages that are the actual translation of Leonardo da Vinci, about Leonardo da Vinci. There's about 50 pages of the author, Giorgio Vasari, 50 pages about him, 50 pages about da Vinci, and then there's another, 25 or so pages of index and references and cross-references and a timeline of da Vinci's life and stuff like that. So the actual part that really interested me the most was those 50 pages of Vasari's writing about da Vinci. Okay, so now let me tell you a little bit about what the book actually tells us about Leonardo da Vinci. And over the centuries, there are a few different stories about da Vinci that kind of made him famous. And I believe all of these stories actually derive from this Vasari book. It's the earliest known writings about da Vinci. So one of the things is that Leonardo da Vinci loved animals like deeply, deeply, and deeply, and that he would go to the market and purchase live birds just so that he could free them into the air and give them their freedom. And, that's a story about da Vinci that's kind of famous, and it's in this Vasari book. He talks about that. So that's probably where that story started from. Another one is that, da Vinci was a renowned poet and musician, and he talks about that a little bit. So, which is an interesting insight into da Vinci's life, other than as a painter, of the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Another thing that he tells us is that da Vinci was also famous for not finishing projects, and that's something that we know now, and has been proven that da Vinci was chronic about not finishing projects. In the book, he says that da Vinci worked on the Mona Lisa for 4 years and then set it aside unfinished. And from other readings that I've had, I believe that da Vinci carried the Mona Lisa around with him for 17 years constantly working on it but never finishing it. So when he passed away, it was incomplete. So I think that's pretty verifiable. Another thing that he told us about Da Vinci was that told us about the bronze horse, which ties in with the unfinished projects. But Da Vinci was working on a 24-foot tall horse project, which would have been a favorite subject of his because he loved horses and he owned horses, and he was really deeply into the anatomy of horses. But that project never made it to completion, and I believe the reason given, not by Vasari but by other scholars, was that the bronze was needed for war. So he never got to finish that project. But Vasari does criticize him, saying that he was pretty famous for not finishing projects, which is true. He often did not finish projects. It caused a lot of discontent in his life in terms of patrons that were paying him. So, that's just some of the interesting things that Vasari told us about Da Vinci. And he takes a look at 8 different works, paintings of Leonardo's, and tells us a little bit about each one of them and, how they exhibited genius, I guess you could say. So I wanted to say one more thing, a couple more things here that I think you might find interesting is that being a 500-year-old book, and I guess the early centuries of writing books, the language is interesting in how the author Vasari kind of bounces around in his narration style. Things weren't as succinct as they are now, and so that shows. Like, there are different passages where he took different things, and I'm gonna read you one passage here if I can. I'm gonna read you one passage here that Vasari particularly wrote about Leonardo da Vinci, and it's about a shield which Da Vinci, I believe he was just a teenager when his first real work of art was kind of made, and it kind of launched him into his future. Was somebody gave him a wooden buckler, which is a round shield, to paint something on it, and he painted something like a scary monster on it that really affected people. So that was kind of his first claim to fame. I wish we still had that buckler. I know it would be wonderful to see that, but it's been lost to time. But let me read you a quote about that, which you might find interesting in terms of the language of the time. This is how Vasari wrote it. Hence one morning, Ser Piero went to the room for the buckler and knocked at the door. Leonardo opened it and asked him to wait for a moment. Returning to the room, he mounted the buckler in the light on an easel and adjusted the window so that the buckler was in dazzling light, and then he let him see it. Ser Piero, at first glance, not thinking about anything in particular, was instantly shocked, not grasping that it could be the buckler and not being aware that it was a painting that depicted what he was seeing. As he turned to step away, Leonardo restrained him, saying, "This work has achieved what it was made for. Take it and carry it away, because this is the end for which the work was intended." It seemed to Ser Piero that this was more than miraculous, and he mightily praised Leonardo's capricious conception. Isn't that something? Okay, I'm going to leave you with 2 more things here in this book review. First, I'll tell you a little bit more about the book and my recommendation for it, and then I will close out this review with by reading to you the opening passage of the Vasari translation. So, about the book. I think if you're really, really deeply interested in Da Vinci, then you should get this book. But if you're curious about his works and of his drawings and about his various things, this probably isn't the right book for you, because this is a scholarly book. And one of the things that denotes that, it's a wonderful book and perfect for me. But if you want to research Da Vinci, then this is the book. And a good example of this is that there are 2 translations of the Vasari. Vasari wrote the original version in 1550 and then rewrote it in 1568. And they translated both for this book into English, And in order to denote the differences in the translation, they actually use different colored fonts in the book so you could know which translation was which, whether it was the 1550 translation or the 1568 translation. So I found that very scholarly and very interesting so you could see the differences. But as a casual reader, it's kind of, I guess, superfluous if you're just casually interested in Da Vinci. And another thing is that I really, for me as a big fan of Da Vinci, they've got a beautiful timeline of Da Vinci's life, key dates and works from his life, which doesn't come from Vasari. It comes from the editor of this book, Martin Kemp, who is a world-renowned expert on Da Vinci, Martin Kemp. He edited this book. And, a lot of cross-references, a very extensive index with a lot more information about, the various works you can read and research, and a further reading section, which is beautiful. So a scholarly approach to and a beautiful book, but not for the casual curious about Da Vinci. So I'll leave you with the opening paragraph of Vasari's story of Leonardo da Vinci. The greatest gifts are often seen to rain down in a natural way on human bodies through celestial influences and sometimes supernaturally, combining beauty, grace, and merit fulsomely in a single body. These gifts are made apparent whenever such a man turns his attention to something. His action is so divine that he leaves in his wake all other men, making it clearly evident that this quality arises, as it does, from the gift of God and is not cultivated by human artifice. Men saw this in Leonardo da Vinci, in whom there was not only beauty of body, never praised enough, but also a more than infinite grace in all his actions. Isn't that wonderful? It's just the writing style. It's quite something. Okay, thank you. Let's do the closeout that I call Magic Hands. Thanks for watching.